Welcome to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast, a podcast that brings personal stories from transplant survivors, their families, friends, and loved ones. This is where you will hear challenges and triumphs of everyone involved in this journey. Our guests will offer wisdom, advice, and inspiration on everything you want to know about transplant. My name is Jenny McFarland. I am a transplant survivor, and this is a podcast I wish I had before and immediately following my transplant. Thank you for listening. Hey everybody, Jenny McFarland here. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited that you guys have come back to listen to another amazing episode. Let me just remind you guys that I love getting reviews from you guys, and not necessarily the official Apple review. Of course, I need those to keep the podcast going and to help people find the podcast. But I love getting feedback from you guys via the website, via email. So keep it coming. I got a lot of reviews and comments from my past two Transplant Games episodes, and it just warms my heart when you guys send those. I want to know what you're thinking, good or bad, hopefully good. But keep it coming. I just need to know what you guys want to hear about, what you guys like, what you guys don't like. So let me know, okay? Log on to the website, www.pretopostTX.com, and, just let me know. You don't have to tell me who you are. I just want your opinion. And of course, I always want, good feedback, how, the podcast, inspires your day and you look forward to the next episode, things like that. But, I'll take the criticism too. This episode is amazing. Let me just tell you, I had the best time talking to my next guest, and her story is phenomenal. And during this episode, we both got a little bit emotional, and I love stories like that. I love stories that touch my heart like that. And my next guest story definitely did just that. So I am not going to take too much time with all this other stuff. If you want to learn more about the foundation, visit www.pretopost.org. And the podcast website is www.pretopostTX. And so, I'm going to leave it up to you guys to go look at that this week. And I'm going to jump right into this episode because it's so amazing. So please help me welcome my guest, Shana Pereira. Hi, Shana. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. So please tell me when you had your transplant, why you needed a transplant, and where you had your transplant.
Yeah. So I had my transplant on Christmas 2020 at Cedars-Sinai here in Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
And I had a heart and a kidney transplant. And why I needed a transplant in the first place is that my kidneys failed on Christmas Eve 2015, actually when I was in Australia.
Oh, okay. So you're originally from Australia.
I am, and I've lived here in the US now since 2003.
Oh, okay. So that's fantastic. You've been here for a while. What brought you to America?
So I originally applied for a job in the newspaper back then, where it was a job to live and work in Los Angeles, marketing the tourism board for my hometown.
Okay.
In Australia. And I thought, this can't be real. It's not a real job.
Yeah.
And turns out it was, and they really liked me. So here I am, which is amazing.
Wow. So did you anticipate being here that long?
No, I didn't. I originally thought I can come over and do a year as an intern and then go back to Australia with experience in working in the US, which is quite a big deal at 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I thought that'll give me a good start in my work career to then be able to branch off from there. But I ended up loving it so much that now I've been here close to 20 years.
Wow, that's great. A lot of people love it here, and a lot of people love Australia too. So I guess when you're from Australia and you're used to it and you come over here to a new place, then you just fall in love with it. So I've always wanted to go to Australia myself. Um, I don't know if I would stay there and move there, but you never know. Never know what you might
An
find.
amazing place to live. It's a really amazing place to live. I
Yeah.
think for me, I have the luxury of being in both countries now and having the choice and the option, which is really great.
Yeah. Okay. So you said that your kidneys failed Christmas of 2015.
Yeah.
So did you have to go on dialysis after that?
Yeah. So my kidneys failed Christmas Eve 2015. And I was actually in my hometown in Australia. I happened to be celebrating having been in the US and having done a bunch of really cool things at work, and felt like it was, a nice time to sort of take a pause and celebrate. And it turns out that I was experiencing kidney failure, which they discovered on Christmas Eve. And so I came back to the US January 2016 after New Year's,
Yeah.
and went on dialysis in April 2017
Oh, okay. Okay. So for those 2 years, it wasn't critical, I guess.
for a year. It
Oh,
was, my kidneys were at 20% going all the way down to 12%. And then that's when I went on dialysis.
okay. Okay. And so then you had a heart and kidney transplant. In the meantime, um, were you just, living normally except for the fact that you had to go on dialysis, or was it inhibiting your life? Like, were you having limitations, or how did that go for all those years?
Yeah, it's interesting when you say living normally, um, right? In your own experience as well. I don't know if you can call it living normally. I feel like, well, first off, I went on hemodialysis first and then peritoneal, and hemodialysis for a year through the heart port. The plan wasn't for me to be on it that long, but it ended up being that long. And that was excruciating on my body. It was a really, for me, it was a tough adaptation of like how to make it all work, to your point of living normally.
Right.
I work in advertising, and at the time I was leading a team of advertising professionals and multiple clients, and they were quite large, so I had to travel and I'd have to figure out my schedule in between dialysis appointments. Like if I was on every 3 days, then I would kind of figure out how I could go and see a client in between those schedules, or I couldn't be overnight anywhere,
Right.
those sorts of adjustments. And then the feeling of just never quite being able to catch up on sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, really for me, those two things really impacted my entire experience. So it wasn't necessarily like I couldn't do specific things, or like I had to quit work and not, but I had to make really major adjustments on the way in which I could handle everything and take everything on.
Yeah.
And there was
Yes.
several times where I'd be sitting in my dialysis seat taking conference calls with beeping in the background and plugged in,
Yeah.
multiple times where that was a thing that I had to adapt to.
Yeah. And so that went on for about 3 years, right? Before
Yeah,
you needed
close
your
to
transplant.
4. Oh no, probably even more. What was it? 2017. Yeah, close to 4 almost.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I guess when I said, living normally, I guess that became the new normal for you, working and going to dialysis and managing your schedule. And people, they go through things and it's tough. And so they just, we have to learn to adapt to what we have to do. And that sounds exactly like what you did. Like you had this life and then your kidney, went into failure and you had to adapt and adjust and have a new way of life. And so I guess that became the new normal, right?
Yeah, it really did. And I used to trick myself. I did a lot of things that would create the ability for me to stay mentally strong and focused. For me, working was really critical. I needed to feel as normal as possible. It
Yeah.
was really a part of my coping mechanism in a good way, not in a denial way. I really was like, no, I like the feeling of interacting with people and feeling as normal as possible, to your point, in that experience. But in going to the dialysis center, which I did for a year, I had a beach bag and I had flip-flops and I had specific outfits that would make me feel like I was wearing a sundress and going to the beach, but that allowed access to my chest and things like that. But I would say to myself, I'm going to the beach. We're just going to go and hang out on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
All good things. And so I would have to like really kind of create an environment and an atmosphere for myself inside of that allowed me to stay focused and present,
Yeah.
and cope with all of it.
Yeah. And so this thing with your kidneys was so unexpected. Um, Once you went on dialysis, did they automatically start talking about, you're going to need a kidney transplant at some point, or did it take a while for you to have that conversation and get to that point?
No, we started talking about it before I went on dialysis.
Okay.
I was clear that for me was a path that I wanted to go. And my kidneys, when they discovered my kidney failure, it was already at 20%. So for the first year, not on dialysis, it went from 20 to 12. And that's where I was very specific in looking up all of my options and speaking to the doctors, etc. One of the things that was really unique was the fact that I actually, 2 years earlier, I had taught a college class for digital media. And in that class, we helped 6 nonprofits.
Okay.
And one of the senior executives in my company called and said, I heard you're doing the intern program. Can you add one of the charities that's really important to me, which was the National Kidney Foundation?
Uh-huh.
And so I added them 2 years before I knew anything to do with my kidneys to the list.
Wow. Yeah.
So when my kidneys failed, as you can imagine, I got to know them all really well because I'd done a bunch of their volunteer work with them.
Right.
I'd gotten to know all of their tools and things that they had available.
Yeah.
And so I actually just called them and said, where do I start? And they were
Oh,
able to kind of point me in the right direction. So that's where I got my information to kick myself off in
yeah.
getting caught up on what do I do in this scenario.
Yeah.
Hence why we had the conversation around transplants, and I was clear early on that that's the direction I wanted to go.
Okay. That's awesome. Yeah, that you were already in that community. And
Yeah,
yeah.
haphazardly, but
Yeah.
it was very synchronous. I didn't plan it, obviously. It was very
Yeah.
synchronous. Yeah.
So did they put you on the transplant list right away? Like, were you waiting for a kidney to become available, or did you end up getting a living donor?
They put me on the list, I want to say middle of 2016. So it took a solid couple months to get all the evaluations, etc. I
Yeah.
got myself listed at two hospitals, at Cedars and at UC Davis
Okay.
here in California. And the process was not easy by any stretch. I had to switch hospitals. I had to really find doctors that I was comfortable with, that I felt understood and I felt heard, and I felt that they really were on the same page as me. It's one of the things that I was very specific about. I kicked in my executive training in the sense of I would interview my doctors. I would listen for some of the things that I saw as understanding that they had the same sort of values as I did and approached their research, for example, in the same way that I would, and the curiosity for different methodologies
Mm-hmm.
was really important for me. And so the process of getting listed was one that it took a solid minute, in the sense of me really discovering what was going to work best and which hospitals I felt most comfortable in, etc.
Were there some that you weren't clicking with?
There was,
Yeah.
there was one in particular that I just wasn't into at all.
Yeah.
And Cedars ended up being where I felt really, really comfortable, and I felt really confident. When they did my evaluation, one of the surgeons came in, I'll never forget it. She walked in like this power woman,
Mm-hmm.
and I started crying immediately because I was terrified.
Yeah.
And she took one look at me and she goes, "Oh no, look at me. I have a kidney transplant at 1 o'clock." And at this point, it was 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "I'm totally fine. We do this all the time. I'm not stressed. You don't need to stress." And I thought, oh, wow. And she laid me back and she goes, "This is where the scar is going to be. This is how we do it." She explained all the steps. And then she gave me this big old hug and said, "We're going to do great," and walked out. And I was in awe. I just thought, who was that? And the nurse was there. She looked at me and she goes, "She just had a baby 2 weeks ago." And I thought, oh my gosh, she's like my superhero.
Oh my
And so
goodness.
it really was that kind of connection where I would look for doctors and surgeons that I just knew was super passionate about taking care of their patients.
Yeah.
And I got instantaneously that she was very confident and very comfortable with all of the process of the surgery, and made me feel instantly at ease. So that's what my version of what was important for me.
Did you ever tell her about that, like later? That she was so inspirational that she's the one who made you decide to stay there?
Yeah, Cedars actually wrote an article where that was the opening story, where I thought I'm in
Oh,
the exact right place.
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Isn't
Yeah.
that amazing? Because it was really a moment where I thought, wow, it really represented for me. And everyone after that carried similar values and similar notions. So I felt like that was the right team for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a fantastic story. I love hearing that story.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's jump ahead a little bit. So you're on the list. You're waiting for your kidney. And how long did you have to wait again?
Close to 4 years.
Oh wow, 4 years. So what's going on in this 4 years? Like how are you handling things? Like what happens in this 4 years?
Yeah, I can a lot. A lot. So the first thing was I met my doctor, who his name is Dr. Rami Hanna, and he was instantaneously amazing to me. Gentle soul, cares so much about all of his patients, and I felt it instantly.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm in good hands with this nephrologist. He is very passionate about research. He's very passionate about discoveries of why things happen in the body, just super curious and extremely smart, and very specific about doctors are healers. They're meant to be there to heal in all aspects and treat the full person, not just your physical body, but also be acknowledging your mental state and your emotional state as you're hearing these news and this life-changing moments that you experience together.
Yeah.
So once I met Dr. Hanna, that's where I felt extremely comfortable. And what happened through that process was my body is super unique, is what I'm learning. And I couldn't use the normal blood thinners for dialysis, and I had to have a special solution for certain things. And the minute I would change a little bit of my medication, everything would go out of whack. And so it was a very delicate process of test and learn.
Yeah.
And that was what that 4 years really was. And I could never quite get my phosphorus and my potassium to line up perfectly. And so that was my constant level of anxiety was around that when it came to my physical treatment. the other part to it was then looking for a donor.
Yeah.
Now, I'm someone who's extremely independent. I moved to the US when I was 22 with $500 in my pocket. I'd never even been to America. And I just landed here going, I'm going to live here.
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you a sense of just like who I am.
Mm-hmm.
To ask someone else to say, can you give me an organ, was so difficult for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was a real emotional journey that I needed to go on and grow through and understand even my feeling of deserving that someone else would give me a kidney.
Yeah.
It was extremely difficult. And balancing that out with having people surrounding me saying, I love you, I'm there for you. And they really were. But then also not having those same people even get tested and fully respect their decision. But
Yeah.
for me, the emotional process that was to not have that mean anything more than they were afraid
Yeah.
was very enlightening.
Yeah.
It took a lot to go through that. And I think that's something that we don't normally talk enough about, around how do you even ask? Like, where do you even start?
Right.
And I had 3 amazing people in my life that said, you don't have to ask, we'll ask for you. And so one of my friends, his name is Sebastian, he does a lot of public speaking, and he started to add that into his speaking engagements.
Uh-huh.
One of my other friends, her name is Judy Lee, she started a Facebook page on my behalf, and they ran it because I literally couldn't, I didn't even know how to even start.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the second part that was happening. And then the third part was managing what we talked about before, managing logistics and my schedule and trying to fit it all in and make it all work.
Yeah.
For 3 years, I was on the peritoneal dialysis. So 11 hours a day, being within 12 feet of a machine. I could make it to the refrigerator, I could make it to the couch, and I could make it back to bed. And that was about it. So making that work, I tried to make it an adventure. Like if we had a game night at my house, for example, I would plug in and still manage to maneuver so I could still sit at game night, but still be plugged into the machine.
Yeah.
And so we made it fun. Like it was, I tried my best to make it fun so that I felt good with it. And I would create my dialysis time as like my spa time as I prepped. That was like my 10 minutes of self-love, where I would create like the energy around it to be healing.
Yeah.
That was my own version of coping.
Yeah. And you did that for 3 years, you said?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And in the meantime, Sebastian was on a couple podcasts where someone heard my story, and then they looked up my Facebook page, or when they looked me up, my Facebook page came up, and I got a call in 2018 from an amazing woman named Katie, and she said, I'm calling because I'm really interested in donating my kidney to you. I saw your picture on Facebook and I instantly knew that I was meant to do this. And I thought, how amazing is humanity? Do you know what I mean? Like, how amazing are human beings?
Yeah.
And so her and I, this was at the end of 2018. So her and I went through the evaluation process through to August 2020.
It took that long?
It took that long. It
Oh
took
my goodness.
that long. And then COVID in between there.
COVID, yeah.
Extended it even further, another 8 months.
Yeah.
It doesn't normally take that long, as you know, but for some reason it took that long. So it was very interesting for me, as I was super frustrated. I was super impatient. I felt really sick. And then I felt like I had no control over any of these steps. And she was very active. She was very pursuant. to what needed to happen. She was very engaged. There were some extra steps that we had to do in the process that were specific and unique to her and I. And so, that took longer.
So with her doing this for you, did you guys form like a super strong friendship and bond through this?
Yes, like a sisterhood. I feel like our spirits were even very similar, just the way in which we both had a spark and an energy, and she's very charismatic. She is a teacher, an elementary school teacher, and just very giving and super, super, super lovely. And also she's very much an advocate for those that are vulnerable, and she's an advocate for those that, need help. And so the two of us have that in common. Yeah. And so we still stay very close in touch, because it turned out she wasn't able to donate her kidney after that, because that's when I found out I needed a heart as well.
Oh, so she wasn't able to donate it.
Well, I wasn't able to.
You weren't able to get it. Yeah. So you found out you needed a heart. Okay. So let's talk about that process a little bit.
Yeah.
So was the surgery that for the kidney, was that scheduled to happen?
So it was toward the end of August 2020. She finally gets approved. And all I had to do was a CT scan and a stress test as my last two tests. And that would be checked off as me being cleared, her being cleared, and us being able to schedule surgery 6 weeks later. So we were super excited, as you can imagine, over the moon, especially after that long. So I go and I do my CT scan and I do my stress test. 3 days later, it's a Wednesday, I get a phone call and the doctor says, we think that your right kidney is cancerous.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what? The same kidney you've been looking at for close to 5 years now is cancerous?
Mm-hmm.
And they said there's 70% chance. And I thought, with all the delays that have happened, everything that happened in between, this is a sign that I'm not meant to survive this. And I lost all hope in that moment. I thought, I'm done. Like, I'm clearly not meant to survive this. This process took way longer than COVID. So all of the elective surgeries are on pause. And here I am. I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And so 48 hours were probably what I thought at the time was my darkest moment. And then I finally wrapped my head around it and I thought, you know what? Whatever happens is meant to. I've done everything I can as a human being. I tried my best. I tried to get my phosphorus sorted out. Like, I tried my best. I don't have anything left. And so I've tried my best. I just have to accept whatever fate is to come has to come. And so by this time it's a Friday and I thought, I'm just going to go to Starbucks and get me an iced tea, sit out in the sun for a little bit and just soak in the summer. So on my drive to Starbucks, I'm in the drive-through and I get a phone call and it's the heart doctor. And he says, where are you right now? And I'm like, I'm just at Starbucks. Like, what's happening? And before he started talking, I said, I've got to tell you, I can't take another thing. And he said, okay. All I need you to do is come into my office. I've got your stress test results. Don't freak out. Your heart is at 15%. And I, for sure, I'm done.
Yeah.
At that point, I thought, God, higher power, universe, whoever is up there is making sure that I know that there is no chance. Like, they are extremely passionate about letting me know that I'm going to die. Like, I'm not going to survive this.
Mm-hmm.
So I drive to his office and he looks at all the results, and it was a profound moment where he said to me, I have so many people out here with a heart and a kidney transplant. We're going to put a game plan together. First things first, we're going to see if we can get your heart strong enough. Then we're going to get your kidney out, make sure that it's not cancerous. Then we'll put you back on the list. Then we'll go for a heart and kidney transplant. And I thought, oh, that's too many steps. Too many steps. There's just no way.
Yeah.
There's no way this is going to happen. And so that's where I was in September 2020, Labor Day weekend, almost 2 years to the day, Labor Day weekend. I spent in hospital waiting for heart surgery to see if they could get my heart strong enough to do the surgery to get my kidney out. And so that's where Katie then wasn't able to donate her kidney, because now I needed 2 organs.
Yeah. When you told her about that, how did she take it?
I don't even remember, to be honest, because it was such a blur.
Yeah.
That time period, I feel like I was in a movie. I felt like I was in Final Destination. You know how like the car accident doesn't kill them, but the toaster does?
Yeah.
That's how I felt. It was like, how have I survived this for like close to 5 years? How has that been possible? And yet here I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't even remember what happened through that process.
Yeah.
Except for these particular distinct moments in time where Labor Day weekend, I spent it in hospital. They did the surgery, and the first step was heal from that heart surgery and see if your heart function comes up. It didn't. It went from 15% to like 20, 25. So then the next step was putting me back on the list and getting my kidney out. So even though my heart was still at 20, 25%, we went ahead with the surgery. And again, it was, you know, at this point, as I said, I thought it's over.
And at this point, were you still wondering about the cancer in the kidney? Did they still not know for sure?
Yeah, they still didn't know for sure.
Wow.
So the next step was actually before I said that. So they still didn't know for sure if I had cancer in that kidney. So I called my best friend. Her name is Rachel. And I was giving her an update. And this was early November. And she said, oh my God, this is great. This is what's going to happen. On Thanksgiving, you're going to get your kidney removed, and it's going to go out into the universe, and your kidney is going to be completely clear, no cancer. And then you're going to get your heart and kidney at Christmas as your gift. So you give an organ out at Thanksgiving as your way of giving thanks. And then you get a heart and kidney at Christmas as your give back because your kidneys failed on Christmas Eve. And then you get it at Christmas, and we make a Christmas movie, and it's a Christmas miracle, and it's going to be amazing. And I thought, what? She was like, it's going to be so good. This is perfect. And I've got to tell you, we all need Rachel in our lives. We all need it.
Yes.
Because I'm in Final Destination. I'm like, something's going to kill me at any moment. You know, if I turn left or right, something's going to off me at any moment. And she's in Hallmark movie where it all has a happy ending.
Yeah.
So I thought, her movie sounds way better. Let me get into her movie and really put my mindset there. And so what started to happen was, the first thing that happened was the surgery got scheduled randomly right before Thanksgiving. So I thought, oh my gosh, like what she said is actually coming true, you know?
Right?
I thought, well, maybe there is something to this. Maybe I'm going to be okay. And then we went through healing from getting the kidney out, and they said the kidney was cancer-free. So that was like 2 big check boxes of going on the path. So I thought,
Yeah.
okay, there's a little hope here.
Yeah.
There's definitely something to this. The next step after that was then getting my evaluations done to get back on the heart and kidney transplant list. And as you know well, that takes a long time normally. It can take 3 to 4 months just getting clearances. And I had said to the doctor, this has to happen at Christmas. So tell me what I have to do. I will get all of the appointments done. I'll do whatever I need to do because we're creating a Christmas miracle. And he was like, it doesn't really work like that, but you have a list of the clearances. So, go for it.
Yeah.
And so I went on a mission with a couple of people who really helped me schedule, call, find specialists, get appointments, lock them in. And I was able to get all of my clearances, majority of my clearances done in about a week. And they were shocked of like, no one does it this fast. But again, my executive training kicked in of like, let's focus on the next steps. Let's do what we've got to do. And then we can worry about the rest later. Just focus on what you have to do. The next step, that's it. And so December 22nd, I got admitted into Cedars for one of the last tests, which is a heart pressure test.
Mm-hmm.
And on the heart pressure test, it was to determine what level that I was to be listed at. And then I had a pulmonary clearance that needed to be done as well. So being admitted, I was able to get the pulmonary clearance in hospital. And they put me on the list on Christmas Eve, December 24th.
Wow.
And I thought, now we've done everything possible. And now all there is to do is to pray.
Yeah.
I'm not religious per se. I grew up in a Catholic family, but I was the only one that refused to do my communion. So I'm really not religious. But I'm very spiritual, and I know that there is a God, higher power up there that is, beyond our understanding.
Yeah.
But I really found at that moment in time, all I had was, God, if you're up there, now's your moment.
Yeah.
Everyone is praying for me. Now's your moment to show us a miracle, because like I had probably 2,000 or 3,000 people that had reached out. Keep in mind, this was COVID. So no one was allowed in the hospital. No one could be with me. I was completely by myself, masked up, just with the doctors and nurses who were amazing. And all I had was Facebook to keep my family, friends updated, to say, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
6 of my friends rallied together and really surrounded me with keeping everybody updated. And my aunt is a Catholic nun, thank goodness. She kept me on point with prayer and was teaching me, because at this point I knew nothing about how to do any of this, right?
Uh-huh.
But I thought I'd better get myself squared away just in case there is a God up there. I want to make sure that I've covered all of the bases.
Yeah.
Because I was still like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. At this point, I felt really, really, really sick. And I was just sitting in a hospital bed, could barely move without losing my breath. Tubes all over, just hoping for the best. We'd done everything humanly possible. That was Christmas Eve. Christmas Day at 10:30 p.m., they called and said, we have a heart and a kidney for you.
Wow.
Which was nothing short of a miracle, because it was still 6 to 8 weeks minimum out.
Yeah.
And to this day, everyone that was there is like, we witnessed a miracle. We have no reason why that would be the case, except for something that none of us are ever going to understand.
Yeah.
but it was on Christmas Day. The next day, they were prepping me for surgery. As you can imagine, we were super excited about like, yay, surgery. The nurses were so amazing in getting me ready to go. The doctors came in 2-3 hours before surgery to say hello and to make sure I was good and say, we're going to come back and get you shortly and we're ready and you're ready. And as we're having this conversation, I flatlined. And that's when it became a real miracle that if I hadn't have been so enthusiastic about my own clearances, if I hadn't made the appointments, if I hadn't found doctors that were going to see me before Christmas, if I didn't do all these things, then my heart was going to stop the day after Christmas.
Yeah.
If my best friend hadn't have just created in the moment, let's make a Christmas movie because your kidneys failed on Christmas Eve. Yeah. Obviously, all of this unplanned, I wouldn't be here. And so that's where I flatlined for 2 minutes. And I had what culture calls an NDE, or a near-death experience. I call it a death experience because I was clear that I was absolutely on the other side.
Yeah.
And I saw the hallway, the light, God, Jesus, all of that.
You did.
I did. And
Wow.
I am the most unlikely candidate that this would happen to.
Yeah.
The most unlikely. And I knew where I was instantaneously while standing there because I felt all of the compassion in the entire world times by 10,000 wash over me, head to toe, just wash over me as I was standing there. And I knew exactly where I was. And as I came back through from being in the hallway to being in this infinite darkness to then feeling like I was asleep and someone was trying to wake me up, felt like someone was kind of patting me on the shoulder, trying to wake me up. It was the heart compressions, the CPR.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up to the CPR and vividly knowing exactly where I was. And I sat up and said, guys, relax. I just took a little nap. Where were we? And they were like, what is happening? And so they raced me to the OR. 3 surgeries later, it's probably 27, 28 hours that I was under. And then another 10 to 12 hours intubated. And I woke up with a heart and kidney, both working really well. And 3 days later, I was walking, taking my first steps.
Wow.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
Still unbelievable, even though it happened to me, it's still unbelievable.
That is unbelievable. That's crazy. That's just amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So you were up and walking. How did you feel emotionally after going through that? And I'm going to ask you this question, and it's an important question. I want to know about Rachel. Did she say, I told you so? I told you that was going to happen.
She says, it's going to make me cry. She says she's never believed and known something more. That when she said that, she never had any doubt. For her, I was getting a heart and kidney on Christmas Day. From the minute it came out of her mouth in early November, she said she's never believed something more. She didn't need to convince herself. She just knew. It was like a knowing that that's what was going to happen. So for her, it was like no surprise.
Yeah.
She really was. And other people that she's spoken to since have said to me, she was so convicted that that's what was going to happen. And she just was like, yeah, she's going to get a heart and kidney transplant at Christmas. All good.
Wow.
And I was on my deathbed looking back now. And I was like, okay, if that's what you say.
Wow.
You know, like
Yeah.
this is why I say it's so important to surround yourself with people who don't buy into what is the standard or the averages or I didn't listen to any of that. I didn't listen to what is the most likely outcome. No, because I'm a unique person, as are each of us. Our bodies are unique.
Yeah.
Averages don't apply. And that's what Rachel did for me, surrounded me with that faith. I have another best friend, Martha, same thing. She took care of me after every surgery and was sitting next to me every time I woke up. It was the same thing. She never bought into I was going to die. They were like, you're going to get a heart and kidney at Christmas. That's what's going to happen. They were so convicted.
Wow.
It's truly amazing.
So back to my original question. How did you feel emotionally? Because you thought that it was the end a few times, as you mentioned. And so now you're walking around with this new heart and this new kidney. How did that feel at that time?
I felt it was a dichotomy. I felt so small and insignificant in a way, where it was like these series of things just happened, right? These tiny decisions that at any point I could have been dead. Like if I'd been admitted on the 27th instead of the 22nd. If the surgery for Thanksgiving couldn't be done until the beginning of December, we would have been delayed for another month, right? Like there's all these like seemingly insignificant decisions that was somewhat small of like, are you available next week for us to do the surgery? Sure. That then led to now I'm alive. I felt so insignificant. Like, who am I? And at the same time, I felt huge of like, wow, like something somewhere said that I was worth being here. Something somewhere said she's worth being here. And I know that's not the way it gets decided, right? Logically.
Yeah.
But it's like the universe, God, whatever we call that higher power, determined that there was something that I was meant to do in life that hadn't been complete yet. And it had never been more real for me. We see that so much in like TikTok videos and motivational speakers and all this kind of stuff where they're like, if you're still living, your purpose is not fulfilled yet. But in actual reality, like, what does that mean? That in that moment for me, when I woke up with a heart and kidney breathing, I thought, I was truly speechless. I was truly speechless about like, I'd gone, to your point, I'd gone from, I deleted any future outside of the next day. And if I woke up the next day, I thought, okay, this is a good thing. And I had lived like that for 3 months. It wasn't like in the moment, my life flashed before my eyes. It was 3 thoughtful, heavy months.
Yeah.
Of like, no, but really I gotta pack it up. And then in amongst that, 2 surgeries and a couple of procedures where at any one of those points, there was a 50-50 chance. So I had deleted anything that I thought was going to happen in the future was gone. So to wake up going, what do I do now? It had me so in the present emotionally. I was so focused on just what is happening for me in my body, and then gratitude. an immense amount of gratitude for just like, I could have taken my last breath and yet here I am, you know?
Yeah.
And sadness because my donor was 29 and she died on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And I had already, at that point, I was 40. I'd already lived 11 years longer than she did. Again, not the way it works in the universe. But in that moment, the feeling, all four of those aspects kept bubbling up. And I think I felt every emotion even more dramatically because now I'm sitting in hospital recovering. No one can come and see me. No one can come near me. I'm super immune suppressed. And I'm like with doctors and nurses only. And I was learning how to pee again. I was learning how to swallow again because I'd been intubated for so long. I dislocated a vocal cord, so I could barely swallow. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move because of the surgeries. So it was like a very sacred, intimate moment. But what I remember most is the gratitude that I felt for the pain of like, this pain is here because I'm still here.
Yeah.
It was a very strange time because all the things that you think you're going to feel is not, it's not what it is. Right?
Yeah. Hold on one second. You are making me emotional. And
Oh, I know, me too.
my nose is starting to run. So I gotta get a tissue. So you're up and walking. And so how long does it take for the healing process? Like how long do you stay in the hospital after your surgeries?
Yeah. So first off, when I woke up, I realized they had done a third surgery where with one of the contraptions that was through my groin had caused a blood clot. So they had to race me back in and get the blood clot out. So I had probably 20 staples on my left, sort of from my knee to my calf, in addition to on my right front of my hip and then my heart.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't figure out where to like press myself to get up and sit down. I was all unbalanced. So I only could be flat or standing up. I couldn't be anything in between. That was for like the first month. It was like anything in between was a no-go zone, but flat or standing up was the best option. And then I was peeing everywhere, like all over the place. And the nephrologist was like, great, like do it. I was like, I had no bladder control at all. And we would celebrate every single time because it was like such a good thing. But that combination was there for 3 weeks. I was in hospital from, it ended up being December 22nd to the 26th, 27, 28 was like the surgery period. I was walking on the 30th or the 31st. And then I got discharged. The first time I got discharged on January 11, I want to say. And then I came back for my first checkup and they found a potential infection in my blood. So then they kept me and readmitted me and then discharged me on January 19th.
Okay.
And that's when I came home. Through that process, I was walking 10 minutes a day and then 15 minutes a day. So through that process, I was walking 10 minutes a day and then 15 minutes a day. And beginning to be able to start to swallow again, trying to get my voice back. My voice was actually gone until middle of February.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And by the middle of February, I was driving. So the actual wounds healed very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The mobility came back pretty quickly. but it was little things on the peripheral, like an infection, like, again, like my vocal cords and swallowing. And it really felt like I had gone from being a baby to a toddler to a teenager and learning how to drive again for the first time in like a 2-month period.
Yeah. Yeah. When I had my transplant, and they said 3 months, no driving. And so we were at like maybe 2 months, and we had to go over to our little storage unit, and the car needed to be turned around. And so I thought, well, I'll just go, I'll turn the car around. No big deal.
Yeah.
Just right up and then turn around and come back. There are no traffic or anything. Well, I managed to turn around and hit a light pole for my first time driving. And I don't even know how that happened. I didn't see the light pole or something. And I got a lot of flack for that with my family. They're like, you're not ready to drive yet. So I had to wait the full 3 months to drive. But
I love that.
Yeah.
Being driven is a really nice thing too, I have to say.
Yeah.
My friend Martha was a godsend. We have stories upon stories of the hilarity of it, where I'm in the back seat and I basically took to sitting on chucks because I just was peeing everywhere. And I would have a 30-second runway to get anywhere that was and me not being able to move, either standing up straight or laying flat, it was useless. Like I couldn't move fast enough. And so we have a ton of stories of just the work that she did around holding me, and we'd celebrate again, every single one we would celebrate, but she would pick me up, she would sit me in bed, she would put me in bed. Like she was just phenomenal, and would shower me. And we tried our best to laugh every single day at all kinds of things, sometimes through immense pain and tears, but we'd still be laughing.
Yeah.
Because we find ourselves in some weird predicament where I would have to hold her in some abnormal way to like get off of my couch, like that kind of thing, where I'm forever grateful for that period. But I had the opportunity to learn to figure out what I liked to eat again and schedule myself in a different schedule again, because by the time I was really, really sick, I wasn't eating. I was barely sleeping. And then if I did sleep, it was weird sleep because it was not from the normal tiredness. So my body was all out of whack.
Yeah.
Just had the opportunity to start from scratch, which I'm so grateful for.
Yeah. And so how are you doing now? Like, how has the recovery process, like, are you still peeing everywhere?
Yeah. So
you still are?
I am. And the kidney that I received had some damage from the donor.
Okay.
It was originally reversing in my body, which sometimes has the opportunity to, just in a different, in a different situation. But it hasn't healed to where we want it to be. So I'm actually back on the transplant list for a kidney.
Okay.
And still peeing, which is still a good thing.
Yeah.
But I'm on the transplant list for a kidney. So it's another reason why I was really, really excited to be on this podcast, because I feel like I'm in both places in a span of less than 2 years. There was the excitement of having gone through that and having felt like, oh, finally I can move forward. And then being like, well, hang on, life has a little bump there to do this again. This time around, I have another donor that similarly heard me on one of Sebastian's podcasts. And she reached out 3 years ago. And she's actually flying in from the Channel Islands. She's from Ireland.
Oh, wow.
In the UK, and she is flying in on September 16th to do her evaluation to see if she's a match and if we can move forward with that.
That is incredible that somebody is coming. Did you know this person, or she just heard about you on the podcast?
So she was similar to Katie. Her name is Alexis. She heard about me on the podcast 3 years ago. We've since become friends.
Wow.
And then when this happened, she saw me share about it and she was like, oh, absolutely. I'm still interested. I'll absolutely do it. And I got to tell you, when you talk about how do I feel like I must have done something pretty good in a past life,
Yeah.
to have this kind of grace and this kind of generosity of people. And my commitment has been that my donor, being 29, that she will be remembered through the things that we do, both myself and Alexis and my aunt and Rachel and Martha and all of my friends, that we do in her honor.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's just, I don't even know, like I don't even know. It's just so much grace that I'm
So,
overwhelmed.
I already forgot her name, but the first person that was going to give you her kidney where it didn't work out, she wasn't
Kate,
able to do it. Oh, Haley, she wasn't able to do it this time.
no, she wasn't. She actually had a couple of circumstances herself physically that came up for her,
Oh,
that
okay.
had a change in circumstance on her, and she was still very eager. She was still very eager. And she's my sister for life. Like, I've
Yeah.
definitely said to her, anything she needs, I'm there for her. Anything I need, I know she's there for me. And she's just been amazing throughout the process.
Well, I think it's incredible that somebody is coming all the way from Ireland to donate their kidney to you. And, just talking to you with this short time, I can see why people want to come and be here for you, because your spirit and your just the way that you are, people can tell that you're an amazing person. And I would give you my kidney right now if I could, but I can't because I'm my own transplant recipient. But I can see why people want to come and help you, because you're, I mean, you're just incredible. You're amazing. So
Thank
I can't wait to hear the outcome of this next surgery. Like, I hope that you're going to come back on and share that with us, because just by what you've been through and what you're going to go through, I already know, like Rachel, I already know that it's going to go fantastic. You're going to have another kidney transplant, and things are going to go amazing. And I
you.
feel like for you that that's going to be, I feel like that's going to be your last hurdle, at least for a while anyway. So we all know that it's gonna work out great. So
Thank you so much. That means so much to me. It means so much to me. I can't tell you, and to my family and to my friends. I really, really appreciate that. And yes, absolutely. I will come on, and I'm happy to help, because this stuff is not easy.
yeah,
It's not easy. And there's so much we don't talk about, which is why I love your podcast. There's so much we don't talk about inside of it. The mental strength that it takes, the emotional strength that it takes.
yeah,
We don't do enough of that. And I really am really committed to shedding some light on, don't lose hope. Even in your last breath, you might make a comeback. You
yeah,
never know. I'm a living example, and I'm super normal. Like, there's nothing extraordinary about me in the sense of, like, I don't have a particularly high IQ. I'm not, particularly motivated in the sense of through my kidney process. I was very resigned. I was, I'm sure there's a list of nurses that'll tell you how difficult of a patient I was. So I wasn't a person everyone looked forward to seeing necessarily, right? But the one thing that I will give credit to is I never ever gave up. Even in the moments where I thought, this is it, we're done, I still took the actions around that. Even though my mind was telling me you're going to die, I still took steps forward. I still acted like I was going to be here. And it's so critical.
yeah, yeah. Usually in my podcast, I always ask everybody if they could give a piece of advice to somebody who's pre-transplant that they wish that they had. And you just gave some really great advice just now. But is there any other advice that you would give to them for somebody who's listening, who's getting ready to go through this process?
Yeah, I'd say get the doctors that connect with you on an vibe level, on a mental level, and emotional level. That is really, really critical. There are a lot of specialists out there. I've had some of the best that I just didn't gel with. And I couldn't do it. I looked for one-liners like, I give this to all my patients. No.
Yeah.
I do this with all kidney transplants. No. I really looked for doctors who didn't give me averages, didn't say the odds are. They were very specific about, this is what we're going to do for your body and your circumstance.
Yeah.
It was super important to me. I'd say that would be one of the biggest enlightenments. It took me ages to learn in the process, that I was allowed to say, I don't want to see that doctor anymore. I want a different one. A lot of us don't realize that. The second part is really surround yourself with people. Surround yourself with people who create life, who speak life, just as their personality. The Debbie Downers, you can have later after this.
Yeah.
Even have those conversations to say, look, I love you, but right now I need to focus on what is possible. Because a lot of people around you, they're not Debbie Downers on purpose. They're scared for you. They want you to be careful. They're scared for themselves to lose you. So they mean well, but protect that mental energy as much as possible so that you don't have anything feeding in to your mental state that is going to have you feel disheartened, because that can have a physical impact.
Yeah.
It can add a level of stress that can have a physical impact. And that the third part is find ways that you can have fun.
Yeah.
It sounds silly, right? But find ways. Like I say, I used to punk myself in thinking I was going to the beach every Saturday for 3 hours when I was going to dialysis, to where the doctor would even say, where are you going? You look great. I'm pretending I'm going to the beach just so I can handle this.
Yeah.
So, those three, I'd say, really kept me alive, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I just, thank you so much for sharing your story. You have an incredible story, and I'm glad that you're out there and you're finding ways to share it. And I think that your story helps people understand the importance of organ donation, and it spreads awareness. Like, we all need more awareness. And I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. It really does save lives. It saves real lives like mine. Like yours, like both of ours.
Yeah.
We are living examples of checking a box at the DMV.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, and amazing work that you're doing to even have an outlet that is willing to talk about the process of transplants and help people that are pre and post. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny. It was really great to be here with you.
It was nice meeting you, and I appreciate your time, and I love your story. And stay healthy. Thank you for listening to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Facebook. Oh, and if you have not signed up to be an organ donor, please visit www.organdonor.gov and register today. You too can save lives.